Hello YouTube, my name is Nero and today we have some Call of Duty Black Ops 3 and I want to pose a question to all of you. Should Call of Duty 2016 have a beta? This is an interesting question because we don't usually get to ask ourselves this when it comes to Call of Duty. Black Ops 3 was the first game to have a beta since Call of Duty World at War. In total, Call of Duty games have had 2 betas, and both of them were Treyarch games. Once again, Call of Duty World at War, which released in 2008, and then Call of Duty Black Ops 3, which released last year in 2015. So there haven't been a lot of precedents for betas in the Call of Duty franchise. I mean, there have been 2, but there haven't been a lot if you compare it to the total amount of Call of Duty games that have released so far. I think it'd be best for the Call of Duty fanbase for Call of Duty 2016 to actually have a beta. So the short answer to this question from my perspective is yes, and the long answer to this question from my perspective would also be yes, and we're going to get into that here in the video. So there's a number of reasons why I feel as though COD 2016 should actually have a beta. Number one is Call of Duty fans get to see the game before it actually comes out, and the whole point of a beta, most of the time anyway, is to try to find any bugs there with the game, try to test the balancing of the game, and so on. One of the things that was great about the Black Ops 3 beta is some of the weapons that were really powerful in the beta were actually nerfed going into the live version of the game. For example, the Razorback, it was very powerful during the beta. It may not have actually been overpowered, but it certainly was overused, and Treyarch saw that feedback. They nerfed the Razorback, and then when the live version of the game came out in November, we didn't have a ridiculously overpowered Razorback. It was actually kind of weak, and they actually decided to buff it up periodically until now it's actually a pretty good weapon, all things considered, and in fact, probably my favorite SMG to use in Black Ops 3, right up there with the COD. So that's one of the good things, right? We actually get to test the game, but like we see from Edmonds here on Twitter, and I did ask you guys on Twitter, would there be any reason why you wouldn't want COD 2016 to actually have a beta? He replies, do you mean a demo? And that's essentially what Call of Duty betas always have been, is they're essentially demos. You see that a lot with games these days. Any game that seemingly comes out with a beta for us to test things, quote unquote, is usually a glorified demo. Typically the game is pretty close to done, and they're basically allowing us to play the demo version of the game, which will hopefully build hype for the game and make us up more people that maybe were on the fence as to whether or not they want to actually purchase the game. Maybe it will convince them to actually buy the game. That's definitely an interesting conversation to have as to whether or not a beta will actually hurt or help the sales figures of a Call of Duty game. As we see from Chimstick on Twitter here, he says might turn people off before the game comes out, and that's definitely something to consider going into the idea of having a beta, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people thought that maybe we didn't have betas in the past for Call of Duty, because it may turn people off. But Black Ops 3 was really kind of the answer to that, I think, because we haven't seen a decline in sales with Black Ops 3. In fact, Black Ops 3 was the best-selling game of 2015, even though it was only out for about a month and a half. It was still ridiculously popular as compared to some of the previous Call of Duty games, even though it still had a beta. And it's also odd to compare Call of Duty sales figures because, one, we have really no reliable source for the actual sales figures themselves besides like VG charts, which is known to be inaccurate at times. And then you have the fact that Call of Duty has been doing this transition over the past couple of years along with all of gaming, where we have been transitioning to new consoles. So a couple of Call of Duties ago, people were buying games for the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, and then they would get their new console, they'd buy the same game again for the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4, and then suddenly you have one person purchasing 2 versions of the game. It's really kind of skewing the sales results. But what we really know is that Black Ops 3 is a very successful game in terms of its sales. I think it's getting close to roughly 20 million. Again, it's hard to kind of estimate exactly how many sales this game has actually gotten because it's not easy to find credible information online with the exception of VG charts, which once again is not entirely accurate all of the time. But right now it's hovering around the 20 million mark among all of the different consoles, which is good. And of course you have PC there as well, but PC definitely makes up a very small portion of the community. But if, like we talked about a couple of days ago, if Microsoft's invitation to try to make cross-platform a thing between the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and the PC, trying to make them all connect to each other online, that could definitely see an increase in sales numbers for the PC as well, because people wouldn't have that downside of playing on PC with an incredibly low player count or anything like that. So that would definitely be pretty good. But back to the topic at hand regarding the Call of Duty 2016 beta, we have this thought here from Adam who says, I want a beta because of Infinity Ward's last game. I would like to see how it plays before I spend money on the game. And that's definitely something to consider as well regarding a beta. I think a lot of people want to see exactly what the game is going to be like, considering Call of Duty Ghost, regardless, and this is always like such a subjective thing, but people think because they like a game or because they don't like a game, that everybody else should agree and everyone else that doesn't agree is just stupid. Regardless of your opinion of Call of Duty Ghosts, regardless of that, it had a drastically lower player count than any other Call of Duty. That's just the very nature of it, which leads a lot of people to believe that the game itself wasn't as popular among Call of Duty fans. And as a result, people are kind of skeptical as to whether or not they would like to see a new game from Infinity Ward and exactly what that game is going to entail. Will that game be fun? Will the game be interesting? Will the game be worth me actually spending money on it? Or should I just stick with Call of Duty Black Ops 3 and continue to play that? So I think a lot of people want to see what the game is going to be like. I wonder how Ghosts would have been different if there was a beta. Would they have kept the SATCOM system? This is kind of like a little bug of mine, I suppose. I'm always talking about the SATCOM because it's just one of my least favorite things about that game. I like UAVs. Every Call of Duty game's had UAV, at least since Call of Duty 4. Why would you change up that format by giving us SATCOMs, which are like a half a UAV, where you have to have like two teammates put down them together to create the effect of one UAV, and even then you have a perk in the game which allows people to hide from SATCOMs in the first place. Essentially, there was no radar. The fact they call it Call of Duty Ghost was kind of a joke to some people because it was like everybody had Ghost built in because nobody ran SATCOMs. So I wonder if the SATCOM system were to have actually gotten off the ground had there been a beta for Call of Duty Ghosts. I wonder if some other things would have changed. I wonder how betas would have changed the Call of Duty franchise as a whole. What would Modern Warfare 2 be like with a beta? What would Black Ops 2 be like with a beta? How would it have been different? Would we have changed some things about it? I don't know. It's definitely an interesting conversation to have. So I think a lot of people would like to see a beta come out for COD 2016. This is going to be a final tweet I'm going to be showing you guys. It's going to be coming from Epic White Bread, which I thought was actually particularly funny. He says, remember that time when they had a beta and the game released filled with unbalanced guns and bugs? Yeah, me neither. Time for beta. And that's definitely something to consider, right? Black Ops 3, some people say, oh, look at Black Ops 3. It's a great example. OP guns left and right. But in reality, guys, if you compare it especially to previous Call of Duty games, Black Ops 3 is a pretty balanced game. I was making videos back in November talking about Black Ops 3 and how it may be the most balanced COD ever because there's no ridiculously broken guns, at least at that time. The M8 was, of course, very powerful. The Vesper was, of course, very powerful, but I don't think either one of those weapons were necessarily breaking the game as compared to like the MSBS that we saw in Modern Warfare 3 or maybe some of the other guns, the other examples I can give from previous Call of Duty games. I just think in general, Black Ops 3 is a ridiculously balanced game, and it is partly due to the fact that it had a beta and we were able to give feedback on different weapons, right? Mainly the Razorback, and there's a couple of other ones as well. So overall, I feel as though a beta is the best thing for the consumer. I think it's going to be best for everybody. I think the one downside would be, like we mentioned earlier, perhaps turning off people of the game before it even comes out, which might hurt sales numbers. Like we saw earlier, the beta did not actually hurt the sales of Black Ops 3. It actually kind of maybe helped it in some respects. And of course, there's going to be some people that maybe that's going to affect, right? It's not going to work the same way for everybody. There are going to be some people that may play a beta for COD 2016 and think to themselves, yeah, I don't like this game at all. I'm not going to purchase it, which that's okay, but I don't think it's going to necessarily hurt the vast majority of people. There's also going to be a number of people out there who maybe are going to be a little bit saddened that the game is going to be kind of spoiled for them in some respects, I suppose. There's not going to be as much anticipation, I suppose, for the next game if you already put a couple of days of playtime into the beta like I did. That was definitely the case for me. I played the beta a lot when it came out for the PlayStation 4, and then when it came out on the Xbox One, I played it a bunch then too. I think I put I forget exactly how many days of playtime, probably 3 to 5, something like that. Like a lot of freaking playtime into the betas of both both betas I was able to play on both consoles. And so for me, when November came around, I was excited for Black Ops 3. Maybe I wasn't as excited as I would have been if I had never actually played the game, but I was still, I was still excited. It didn't ruin the game for me. So I suppose there's really no big downsides for the consumer at the end of the day. I think it's the best thing for the Call of Duty fan base in general to be able to play the game a little bit earlier, test things out, make sure it comes out in a stable state. How many times have we seen guns or things in Call of Duty release at launch and it's just like, wow, this is broken. Like, how did they not realize this? How did they make this past testing? And it doesn't make it past testing if the actual player base gets to play the game. And yeah, so overall, I feel as though it's a good thing for the Call of Duty community as a whole, and for the developer, for Infinity Ward, or for the publisher Activision. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because there's going to be a lot of promotion and a lot of hype built around their game based upon betas, right? That's just what we saw here in Black Ops 3 as well. And like we mentioned earlier, it didn't seem to affect sales too much. I mean, maybe sales are going to be a little bit lower than what they were last year. Maybe, I don't know. But it was still the best-selling game of 2015. And if you're not making a nice profit off a game that was the best-selling video game of that entire year, even though it was only out for a month and a half, that's not counting all the sales figures it's going to have going forward, all the long tail of the game is going to have, then you're probably doing something wrong with your game. I mean, if you look back at 2015, the #1 best-selling game game of 2015 was actually Black Ops 3, and the 10th best-selling game of 2015 was actually Advanced Warfare, even though Advanced Warfare came out in November of 2014. So just extra sales, right? The long tail of Advanced Warfare just selling over the course of January of 2015 all the way up until December of 2015. Just back catalog sales, I suppose. They still were enough to make it in the top 10 list of all video games that were sold that year. So that's just the thing about Call of Duty. I have no doubt that Black Ops 3 is also going to be one of the best-selling games of 2016 because Call of Duty is ridiculously popular, and it doesn't appear as though the beta seemed to have hurt it in any respect. So overall, yeah, I think a beta would be the best thing for COD 2016. I'm hoping that they're going to announce something along those lines. It would definitely be good for the player base, and it appears to be good for the company as well. So it seems to be a win-win. But of course, it's just my opinion. I would love to know your guys' thoughts under in the comment section below as to whether or not you would like to see a beta come for Call of Duty 2016. Of course, give your thoughts and opinions on that. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. I hope you guys all found it helpful and informative. Please drop me a rating. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.